You see it? You see it, baby? Yo, what's good? What's going on? It's AD2 Comics, and welcome to my weekly review. Here's everything I picked up this week. I'm gonna highlight a few of them today in this week's review. Real reviews, real reactions, no fluff. Let's get right to it. Punisher Red Band issue 3. What I love about Punisher Red Band is just the pace. It is nonstop, fast-paced action. It kicks off with Punisher on the hood of a Mack truck and blowing a dude's heads off. And this big dude jumps out the back of the truck, the trailer. He grabs this dude's neck and then tears his neck, esophagus, whole throat from his neck, bro. Look at those cracks. It's fast-paced, it's bloody, it's unbelievable. So we learned in the previous issues that Kingpin is controlling Punisher with a chip that is inside Punisher's brain. The big twist here is that Punisher was able to deny and actually disobey one of those commands in this issue. Towards the end of the issue, Punisher ends up pretty much hijacking an ambulance or an EMT and telling these guys that he needs the chip removed from his brain. So it looks like they're teeing up a surgery or something. Yo, I enjoy every page of Punisher Red Band. If you're not reading it, I highly advise that you catch up. I got extra issues in the store. Hit up the eBay store if you need one. But absolutely love Punisher Red Band. Highly recommend it. All right, next up, we got Absolute Batman 14. This issue is a banger. This is the epic conclusion to his ongoing feud with Bane, and it is worth every page. They don't waste a page. They have a big fight in the middle of a stadium. The whole city's tuned in. I mean, he drops a building on Bane's head. Harley Quinn is helping Bruce fight Bane. Absolute Catwoman makes another appearance. Croc gets involved. I gotta show y'all how he drops this building on Bane's head. Look at this. If you can see that, right? He calls it Welcome to Gotham, bro. He steps on a pedal and drops a building on Bane. And that's to kick the fight off. This fight truly is great. It takes unexpected twists and turns. There's a few points where you think the fight's over, but then it takes another epic turn. It's just truly satisfying and enjoyable. I highly recommend you read it. And then, of course, it ends with a nice little tee-up for what you already know is coming for Absolute Batman issue 15, Absolute Joker. And if you follow this channel, if you follow me on social media, you already know for Absolute Joker, I am locked in, okay? I cannot wait for that issue to drop. All right, let's keep it rolling. Another banger. Next, we got DC KO issue 2. Really good issue. So with this challenge, they have to find 16 items, but there's only 32 fighters and contestants, right? And so they list the items here. Of note, Thor's hammer is one of the items. They just drop that Marvel reference like Thor's hammer, and they don't even really elaborate on that. It's just there. Kind of like that though. So obviously in this round, we're gonna lose 16 fighters, which means there's a lot of just chaos going on, a lot of little mini battles. They bounce around showing you what happens with each battle, but they do a good job of kind of keeping it easy to consume. One thing I want to really spotlight that really stood out to me in this issue, they really spent a lot of time focusing on the battle between Lex Luthor and Superman. And it looks like Lex Luthor gets the best of them, but at the end, Superman ends up following the one rule that was in the introductory instructions, that if you follow the example of Darkseid, you shall be rewarded. And right when it looked like Superman was about to die, he sacrificed himself. Here, that's the sacrifice, giving him the power of the Omega. Super dope story. It was well told. I really got to say, this is definitely worth reading. Make sure you pick it up and read it if you haven't already. All right, so now let's shift over to Image Comics. We're going to start with Exquisite Corpses issue 7. This one was a banger. All right, so Michael Walsh and James Tynion, and they're batting 1,000 with this series. My favorite part of this issue is when Audrey and Laura, they're like still driving in the ambulance. They end up crashing into a cemetery, and it's the same location that the Lady Fox Killer and the Lone Gunman are fighting. Yo, and that's a good fight. This was a really, really good matchup. Two skilled fighters, and the fight takes a while to kind of develop. I don't even think the fight finishes by the end of the issue. One of my favorite fights so far. So the other big fight here is between Lady Blaze and Pretty Boy, and Lady Blaze ends up blowing up the whole keg party, right? And when the explosion happens, it cuts all the feeds. So all the wealthy people who are watching the tournament, they don't see what's happening. They don't know if anybody died, which killer died, if anybody. And then a really dope touch for the comic book is when you get to the last page where they normally would show an updated view of the bracket so you can see which killer died. All you see is static over the bracket. That was a really nice touch, man. So it makes you that much more anxious for issue 8 when they can kind of tell us what the hell happened, who died, who survived. Really, really recommend this issue. Definitely worth copping, worth reading. All right, next we got Everything Dead and Dying, issue 3. Man, just look at that cover art first of all. Beautiful. The storytelling and plot development with this series is just top notch, man. Tate Bromble's a great writer. The issue kicks off. Jack is in a standoff with a group of individuals who approach his home and notice that he has zombies that he's actually feeding and taking care of. So they're suspicious, they're armed, turns into a shootout. It ends up getting out of hand. Jack ends up taking one of their members hostage. They arrange for a meetup later in the issue, and it looks like they're gonna do a trade-off where he's gonna give the hostage back. They agree never to come back, but obviously it doesn't go that smoothly because humans are humans, people be bugging, and a gun goes off. Daisy ends up biting the hostage. This thing escalates very, very quickly. And so after all of that, Daisy gets shot. She falls off the bridge. And then the leader of that pack ends up getting Jack on the ground and punching him. That's where things leave off, man. I'm really enjoying this series, though. Definitely worth getting. It's not just another zombie story. This story is very well told and has an interesting take on the whole zombie situation. These zombies are a little different. Check it out, man. You won't regret it. Right, we still rocking with Image. Next up, we got Final Boss issue number 1. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. This might be the most fun comic I read in a long time. And Tommy Brazen is probably gonna be my favorite hero for a long time. This issue follows Tommy Brazen. Long story short, listen, I already talked about this one on my TikTok in pretty detail. It just had so much fun. But follows this guy. He's a hired gun. He does underground fights. We end up learning that his grandfather was in the World War II, I think, and his father found this relic in the jungles while he was at war. He kept the relic. Tommy wears it, and it ends up giving him powers, bro. And we watch the powers kick in the middle of a cage fight. Yo, I gotta show y'all some of these panels. First of all, look at this presentation at the start of the fight. I mean, this is classic Street Fighter 2, Mortal Kombat 2. This is like early to mid 90s video game presentation at its finest. So here you can see Tommy summoning his power mid-fight and starting to whoop dude's ass. And he ends up ripping this dude in half. Can you see that? Yo, it's crazy. There's also a panel and page earlier in the issue in his apartment. You can see a Bloodsport poster in his living room. Let me show you that. You want to win me over early on in your comic book? Put a retro classic reference like Bloodsport, RoboCop, Lionheart, Commando, any of those 90s classics, Jean-Claude Van Damme, Arnold Schwarzenegger, all of that. Hey, yo, if you love those action flicks from the late 80s, 90s, those video games from the 90s, you're gonna love Final Boss. I'm pulling the whole series. I'm looking forward to all the following issues. This one is definitely a keeper. Make sure you cop it and read it. Another banger. Next up, we got Skinbreaker 3, Image Comics. On brand with Skinbreaker, I say it every time. This is top tier storytelling and breathtaking art. With this issue, we jump to the future. We see Enoch as an aged tribe leader, kind of like how the series started. And now we see him nearing the end of his reign and a young and hungry rival kind of seeing this opportunity to sort of challenge him for his spot. We see him fail at a hunt and kind of put the whole tribe at risk. This animal ends up attacking him, and the decision he makes ends up leading the animal right to the tribe, and it, pretty much leads to a confrontation in front of the whole tribe. It tees up a challenge. And so the next issue, we're going to be able to see that challenge. All that to say, Skinbreaker, I'm always going to recommend it. This is a great series. It must be made into a TV series or a movie, but do yourself a favor, definitely cop this. Worth reading. Damn, man, is Image making all my favorite books right now? Next up, we got Escape issue 4, another one of my favorite series. In this series, we're following a soldier. His name is Milton. Him and his whole team ended up getting shot down from the sky, and he's behind enemy lines. And he's been just on the run trying to duck the enemy, and the enemy knows is there. They're hunting him down. He ends up hiding in a storefront, and he ends up running into a family. And there's a loose floorboard. They pull him in to the floor, and they kind of take care of him for the night. And so with this issue, we get to meet the family. The guy who took him in turns out to be a journalist, and he's very aware of the propaganda that his country spreads. They have a really interesting conversation about just the different views of war, who's right, who's wrong, all the innocent lives that end up having to be sacrificed when battles on this scale end up taking place, right? They have a very interesting conversation, and there's a lot of reasons to trust the guy who took him in. He seems very reasonable, but Milton just kind of has an instinct that something isn't right. Also, he's missing his satchel, and the guy who took him in says, there was nothing in there. But Milton knows that there was something very important in there. So he doesn't really trust him. And so when the family goes to sleep, he seems to kind of he gets up and he goes and investigates. And that's how the issue ends. So I think with the next issue, we're going to be able to see what this guy's angle really is. Highly recommend this series, bro. If you're not reading it, highly recommend you do. This is a definite must cop, and you definitely should read it. All right, for this next one, we're going to shoot over to Boom Studios. Next up, we have Berserker 1, The Bleeding Tide. Hey, yo, this was my first Berserker read. This is the Keanu Reeves comic book. This was a lot of fun. So this woman who leads this ship, she ends up following the sound of a heartbeat, and then it ends up leading her to this box that's chained at the bottom of the sea. She pulls it up, brings it to the ship, and it turns out to be B. And he's like this formless mass. And then he sort of shifts back into his human form over the course of a couple minutes. And then soon thereafter, this whole crew is in a battle with another crew at sea, and he ends up fighting, joining in the battle. And it's bloody, it's action-packed. Let me see if I can show you a couple of panels. There was like this one panel where they took one swipe and killed like 5 soldiers in one swipe. That shit was crazy. I mean, just look at this panel. I mean, just look at all the blood. Huh? This was a lot of fun. So then after this battle, they got a chance to talk. We end up finding out that she's, I think, a vampire. He ends up unveiling that he's immortal. They have great conversation. Their connection deepens throughout the issue. He ends up helping her in another battle where she has to face this sorceress who has her daughter held captive, and he ends up helping her fight that battle. And then after that battle's over, she has her daughter again, and then he joins her at sea. And it kind of just leaves kind of open-ended as to what happens next. But it seems like their connection starts to deepen. I wouldn't be surprised if they end up becoming like romantic partners. But yeah, this was a dope read, man. This makes me want to go back and kind of dig up some back issues and read up on Berserker. Highly recommended. This is a must cop, definitely worth reading. All right, so the reviews are done. Now it's time for my top 3 pick of the week. And this is an interesting one because this is a mix of books that I've read over the last 2 weeks. So keep that in mind. All right, number 3 goes to Final Boss issue 1. Lots of fun, highly recommended. This is just an homage to everything I loved about the 90s, movies, action flicks, and video games. Number 3, Final Boss. Coming in at number 2, we got Skinbreaker issue 3. Y'all know I love Skinbreaker. No surprise that it made it to the top 3, but this week it's going to be number 2. All right, and this week's number 1 pick goes to, you guessed it, Absolute Batman issue 14. Y'all know I love Absolute Batman, but this issue right here is such a banger. There's so much hype around issue 15 with Absolute Joker that's coming up, issue 16 with Absolute Wonder Woman coming into the picture. A lot of hype for these future issues, but this epic conclusion to the battle with Bane was so satisfying. They didn't waste a page. Shout outs to Scott Snyder, Nick Dragata. Y'all killed it with this one. Top pick of the week, Absolute Batman issue 14, y'all. That wraps up this week's reviews. What am I reading next? Next week, I'm going to be diving into Batman issue 4, Night Fight issue 2. We got Superman versus Captain Atom, too. So lots to look forward to. If you're following along, drop your recommendations below. All right, if you're rocking with the AD2 Comics Weekly review, then make sure you drop a like, subscribe for the next episode, and drop a comment below with what you're reading and what you want to see reviewed next. And also remember, all my reels are on IG and TikTok, so make sure you check me out over there at AD2 Comics, all right? Catch y'all next time.